All right, you guys, I think we're right about time. Welcome. Thank you for selecting this session, How to Teach Financial Literacy, even though you may be a little scared. Just by a show of hands, I want to know who is brand new to teaching financial literacy within the last year or two. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Who's been teaching it for 5 years or longer? A couple. All right. The rest of you, are you guys seasoned veterans? Have been teaching it for your entire 10-year career span? Nobody. Okay. Oh, okay. A one. And you're still scared, which leads me to money is, it's scary. It's a scary thing. I'm going to go through a couple of things and hopefully make it a little less scary for you guys. We have a couple more people coming in, so I'll give it probably just another minute or so while I do introductions. My name is Christine Tobin. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for an organization called Young Investor Society. Some of you may have heard of us. We have a lot of high schools here in the Utah area that use our program. And I'll go into the different ways our program can be used a little later. But I have a bachelor's degree in child development, and I started my career in teaching. So I know exactly how you guys feel coming from a teaching background. I taught reading intervention K through 6 for about 3 years before I got into admin, and then saw my way out into a nonprofit and have done nonprofit admin for the last 20 years. Originally with the Girl Scouts of California Central Coast, which is a huge county, spans 3 counties in California with Girl Scouting. So if you're familiar with Girl Scouting and our Girl Scout cookie sale, that is the largest financial literacy program for girls ages 6 through 12. And so that kind of the financial literacy component in the Girl Scout cookie sale led me to where I am now, which is Young Investor Society. So that's just a little bit about me. I recently have a master's degree in management and leadership through WGU just about a year ago. So that was fun. So if you have any questions about anything that I just covered about teaching, about transitioning, about anything teaching personal finance, and even the WGU program, which I highly, highly recommend for their master's degree in management and leadership, if you're interested. All right, so just a little bit of an intro. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation around financial literacy, and I'm going to give you some scary statistics. Also, we're going to talk about first experiences in financial literacy and what that looks like for ourselves and what that looks like for the kids that we're dealing with. Financial literacy fears, which is kind of the whole reason why we're here, because everyone has a little bit of fear in either teaching financial literacy or just the information around finance. We're going to go over some of the biggest investment myths that are out there. And then I'm going to give you some financial literacy resources. So basically, access to our Young Investor Society program. You can pick and choose whichever courses and lessons you see fit that meet your needs. And then we're also going to talk about a little bit about our club model as well. And then we have some trivia questions that we're going to ask. And then everything in our presentation today is related to things that are scary. So, meaning, the 2/3 of Americans fail a basic financial literacy test. That is a scary statistic. So a basic financial literacy test would be something like, I think Jumpstart has just a basic, what's the difference between credit and debit? Those kind of basic questions. 2/3 of Americans can't, pass a simple exam. So what is financial literacy? What we like to think is financial literacy is kind of an overall encompass understanding and making use of a variety of financial skills, including personal financial management, budgeting, and investing. It also means comprehending certain financial principles and concepts, such as time value of money, compound interest, managing debt, and financial planning. So why are these things important? Obviously, everyone has a reason why, personal finance is important to them. But it's basically achieving financial literacy can help individuals avoid making poor financial decisions and help them become self-sufficient and achieve financial stability. So I want to kind of go into a little bit of what attaining financial literacy includes. So learning ways to earn money. So you have to have money to be able to do things with money, to be able to budget with money, to be able to start investing money. And then they're going to learn how to create a budget, track spending, pay off debt, and plan for retirement. So these are kind of the fundamentals that we want to attain teaching financial literacy to students. Only 8 states require a standalone personal finance class to graduate high school. This is constantly changing, but as of right now, these are the core states that have a standalone program, meaning a whole entire semester dedicated to personal finance. If you notice, California is not one of them. I'm from California, and we're trying really, really hard to change legislation. There's always legislation kind of in the works. There's like 25 states that say, yeah, we're going to do this, but not until 2028. And so there's kind of this long-term plan for states to get there. Utah is actually probably the first state that got there quickly and is doing a great job in being able to allow students to access personal finance solely before graduating high school, which is amazing. So I just want to talk a little bit about your first exposure to financial literacy. So I'll start first. My first exposure to anything that had to do with finance was in high school. I graduated as a junior, so I was able to take an economics class as a junior. And we did maybe a worksheet on budgeting, and that was kind of all we had around personal finance. So it was basically like track your spending for a week and figure out all of these things. Needless to say, that was not enough as a high schooler who was about to leave high school into college to not know anything about budgeting or, where this money is even supposed to come from unless you had a part-time job or parents are giving you allowance, which I had neither. So it was really difficult for me to get anything out of this budgeting worksheet when you just don't have anything to write about. So I just want to talk a little bit about the high school courses and programs that I had available to me. They were zero. I had zero access to financial literacy in high school. I went to a Title I school, so we didn't have programs like FBLA and DECA to kind of bridge that gap for these kids as an after-school program. And then we also didn't have the curriculum in the high school either. There's a lot of schools that are fortunate to have all of these programs, including the Young Investor Society program. So one of our initiatives is to go into Title I schools and give them our programming, basically because I didn't have that opportunity as a high schooler. So I just want to hear some about your kind of experiences in high school. Did you guys get a personal finance class? Did you get to experience what that really means and start even investing and saving for retirement? Was any of those things talked about in your high school when you were in there?
I went to high school here in Utah, so we had it, but I felt like as a student, I think it might have just been my attitude, but it was very much just trying to push through the content. So I just remember it's a lot of content to cover for us, and but I remember it just being a lot of just PowerPoint, just trying to push through all the information. So I don't remember doing actual assignments where you were applying it, or does that make sense?
Yes.
It's just very...
Yes. So it's me talking to you, and then you're just trying to absorb the information, and we know that kids don't really absorb information in that capacity, right? Great. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else, your personal experience with any kind of financial literacy course that you took in high school before you went to college? Anyone else want to share? No? Okay, no worries. The next thing I want to talk about is informal and home teaching. So a lot of our students, of course, get their first financial literacy experience in the home. I'll tell you my personal financial story. I am from a home where I grew up with my grandparents. My family are immigrants from Mexico. I'm first generation born here. My mom had me at 18 years old, and so she was able to have her parents kind of adopt me for about 10 years so that they can raise me because she was unable to. In this kind of home structure, the finances that we basically were taught, coming from a Hispanic background, Mexico has a banking system that may or may not be the greatest. And so in the history of Mexican banking, there have been banks that have collapsed, and basically when a bank collapses, you lose all your money. And so this distrust in the banking system is kind of generational. And so even though it didn't happen to my grandparents per se, it happened to my grandparents' parents, this fear of the banking system is still kind of intergenerational and crosses over into generations. So we didn't bank. And so what do you do when you're underbanked? You do things like you put money in the sock drawer, you put money under the mattress. And so you have a cash society where you're just using cash all the time. So there's no building credit, there's no credit score to be even heard of. So access to things like cars. You can't go to a car lot and purchase a vehicle because you have zero credit. Or the payment would be super astronomically high. So you're just caught in this cycle of this cash society. My mom actually cashed her checks at the liquor store, which was convenient because it was walking distance away. And so that liquor store charged 5%. To her, that 5% was worth it. She would give up 5% of her check just to have the convenience of going to the liquor store and getting cash. So that's kind of the mindset that I had growing up and in my little community. And so being able to understand where students are coming from, where they might be from an underbanked situation, where there might be things like, you're cashing your checks at the liquor store and they're taking 5% off the top, so you have to budget for what the rest of that looks like. And so it really is kind of this mindset that's going on where, you're introducing things like banking to students maybe for the first time. And maybe for the first time in their family, they're the only ones that are going to have a bank account. And so it's teaching the kids, and then from the kids, parents start to get a little more interested. I think I was probably the first one in my family to have a bank account, only because I had a boyfriend who was like, you don't bank? Like, how do you pay your bills? How do you do this? And I was like, you get a money order from the store. And so that concept to him was like, what? Like, what are you doing? And so he actually introduced me to the world of banking and taught me that it was safe. He's had a bank account since he was in 6th grade. They did a whole, service thing at his private school where they all took him to the bank and they opened up accounts. And those are things that I didn't have access to. And so I just want to hear from you guys. Do you guys have a similar story, or have students that with a similar story that you can share with the rest of us? Anyone want to share? Come on now.
What not to do.
Same, yes.
From the school part not.
Okay. Yeah. Did you want to give us an example of what that looks like?
There was no formal teaching. My mom was a spender.
Yeah.
And so I watched her spend,
Yeah.
and I thought that's what you did until
Cash or on credit cards?
both.
Both.
And,
Yeah.
And then when I was an adult, all of a sudden I was supposed to know what I was doing.
Right?
It was too late.
Yeah. And I think that's how it is with most of us, right? Like we see, yes.
Well, one of the things that my mom used to do was back in that day, you wrote a check, and it took like 2 days to clear to the bank, and they had payday on Friday, so she'd go do her shopping on Wednesday because she wouldn't clear the bank till Friday. That's not a very good thing to do, but
Yeah.
that's what she did.
Yeah, exactly. So that's floating checks and technically kind of illegal. Anyone else? Right. Okay. So these are kind of the things that we, take with us on our day-to-day basis. It's how you grew up. It's the things that you have learned even before you think you're learning. It's the habits of our parents, and it's the habits of the people around us that we tend to adopt for ourselves. And so these are kind of the things that we need to address when we're dealing with students and we're dealing with financial literacy. So here's a fun fact. 59% of parents are uncomfortable talking to their kids about money. Why do we think this is? Why is it that when you're raising a child, my child is going to be 21, by the way. He is out of high school, he's in college. But why do you think that parents have a hard time talking to their own children about money? What is it about money that kind of is this barrier? Did you have your hand up? I'm picking on you. Did you have your hand up? Yes.
Let's talk about it. I think it's very, like how we spend our money, what we do with it is very sensitive to us.
Uh-huh.
And we feel like a lot from it, so it's like we don't want to share that with our children.
Right.
Or anybody to be like, okay, now you're gonna think this about.
Sure. So money is very personal to us, right? We attach kind of a personal, like, I'm spending this money on this because I have a personal reason to do so. I may or may not want to share that with my children, right?
I was going to say, based on your statistics, that 2/3 of Americans failed that test. A lot of times, I think adults are embarrassed to talk to their kids because they don't want to admit they don't know anything about it themselves. So.
Right.
And then, yes?
I agree with him, and I think it's something that we all feel like we should know about, but we don't. And we do, but most people don't. And so then what are you going to tell your kid if you don't know anything?
Right. Or it's kind of just that insecurity that we have because maybe we have credit card debt. Maybe we have student loan debt. Maybe we have debt that we are still dealing with and we're embarrassed to share that with our kids, right? Because we don't want them to follow the same path. But then we're also not teaching them, our mistakes. And like you said, you saw your mom do these things, but not once did she ever tell you not to do those things. So it's kind of that catch-22 where you want to, teach your children these things, but then they see you and your spending habits, and so it's kind of a difficult situation. So 59% of parents are uncomfortable talking to their kids about money. So that's kind of number one, right? So if the parents are uncomfortable talking to their kids about money, who do you think that falls on? Teachers. That's right. And so that's why teachers are kind of responsible now, instead of parents, to teach personal finance and to teach students about money because they're not getting it at home. All right, we're going to talk about some of the biggest financial literacy fears. And I think we already talked about this one. Teachers and parents are not comfortable with their own finances. So who in here still has student loan debt? Raise your hand. Student loan debt. Yep. Who has credit card debt? Raise your hands, right? Everyone has, some kind of debt or any kind of other debt. Vehicle debt, housing debt, anything else, store credit cards, Victoria's Secret, whatever it is, right? There's some kind of debt that you guys are in. So that's kind of number one. So uncomfortable with your own kind of debt that you carry, and how do you translate that into students, right? How do you translate, like, I already have, 5 credit cards that I'm paying on. How am I supposed to tell my kids how they're supposed to manage their finances? All right, so overcoming your own fears. So basically teaching from your own experience. So just like you had said about your mom. So if your mom would have sat you down and said, look, I am straddled with this credit card, that credit card, this credit card. This is how I got into this mess. I don't want that for you. You can do different. I want you to be responsible with your credit card. I want you to not apply for a credit card until you're at the age where you can responsibly handle a credit card. I want you to know what the APR on that credit card is and what an APR is and why you need to know that. So if your mom would have sat you down, would that conversation have changed kind of the way you saw spending? Yes. So these are kind of the conversations, teaching from your own experience. And I know a lot of teachers who don't want to go there with their students. They don't want to release that kind of personal information. But it's those kind of moments and those teachable moments that students cling onto that make you human and not just a teacher to them. So it's, here are the mistakes that I've made. I got a credit card that was 30% because I wanted to use the points to buy this trip, or whatever it was. And that was a mistake because I ended up charging too much and I couldn't pay it off. And so, I got the points, but at the end of the day, now I have $3,000 worth of credit card debt. And my, interest rate is 30%. It's never gonna go down. So these are kind of the mistakes that kids really kind of grab onto and say, like, oh, when I'm there, I'm not gonna make this mistake because this is how it affected this teacher's life.
Well, and I think with that too, I feel like with money, we associate a lot of self-worth and esteem associated with having money. And so I think when we explain, hey, we've made mistakes, but we're still here, we still have careers, and we still have families, and we still have a way to, move forward, or whatever that looks like, it also gives kids hope, because a lot of times they look up to teachers or people who, are mentors or should be in their lives, right? And so I think just saying, hey, leveling with them and saying, hey, nobody's gonna be perfect with making financial choices, but you can learn from those mistakes, and here's a couple ways you can prevent doing that. Yeah. I think as people, a part of the shame is because we associate finance and good finances or high amounts of financial money or whatever with our self-esteem and the worth of a person. And so I think if we can kind of detach that a little bit, that helps students too, to not have so much shame in talking about finances.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? That is, she hit the nail on the head. So it's our own personal biases that we bring to teaching about finance, right? Does anyone have anything else? Yes.
I think it's important also, when you're talking about credit cards, make sure kids don't fall into traps that we fall into a lot of times, making the minimum monthly payment, because then you'll never get them paid off.
You're exactly correct. And if you've ever been to like the first day of college, like whatever that's called, they have like all the quad is filled with every credit card company you can think of, trying to get these kids on their first day of college when they're registering for classes and doing everything to sign up for this credit card. Most of the kids that graduate high school don't even know the difference between a debit card and a credit card. They don't even understand when you're paying for groceries that there's two different versions on your debit card, that you can pick credit or debit. They have no understanding of what those two different things are and why they even exist. And so it's terrible that credit card companies are at college campuses on the day, that they basically become adults and they're in college, to just straddle them with debt as their main goal and objective, right? So how do we teach kids to like notice these things? How do we teach kids to notice these signs and be able to say, like, maybe you're not ready for a credit card. Maybe, you're not ready until you understand what an APR is, and that there's different credit cards to choose from. And maybe you can make a wise decision if you decide to get a credit card, and what that strategy looks like, right? Like, credit is perfectly fine to establish credit as a young individual, right? They want you to be 18 years old to apply for a credit card. They give you usually a low minimum balance, $500 limit, just to kind of test you out, right? Just to test you out. And the more, you make a purchase, you pay off that purchase. That's kind of the baby steps of credit, right? And so then they reward you by upping your limit to $1,000. And then, it just continuously grows, just to be able to straddle you with more debt at the end of, a 10-year period. Now you can charge, $15,000, and it was $500 before. So just teaching kids these kind of concepts. The one I like to use is like the shoes you have to have, the Air Jordan shoes, whatever shoes it is, the $100 shoes that you buy today you pay cash for it, that's $100. If you pay credit and that credit card is, 25%, that $100 is $125 now that you're paying for those shoes. And it just depends on how long it takes you if you're making the minimum payment. And of course, they drop those minimum payments to, $5, $10 a month. So you're like, this is easy, I can just pay this. But at the end of a year, those $100 shoes are now, $300 shoes. So being able to tell kids, like, this is how this works, is kind of just this basic fundamentals of personal finance. So I think I talked about this, but it's 32% of teens don't know the difference between a credit card and a debit card, which I feel is pretty devastating. So I think we did talk about what financial mistakes you've personally made. I think I've talked about some of mine. Does anyone else have anything that they want to share about their personal mistakes that they've made? The last time I did this, I had a really great one. And she had said she had bought a vacation club package that she thought was a fantastic idea because it was going to get her and her husband to travel more. And the concept of being able to take a vacation every year was a great selling point for her. They were actually on vacation when they were approached to buy this vacation package. And it was one of these, they get a free spa day if they sat in on this 90-minute session, right? You're shaking your head, yes. I recognize that you've also been in a timeshare presentation. And so at the end of the thing, it was this is how people take vacations every year. This is how, and it's going to be great for us, and it forces us to use it, right? It forces us. What she didn't really grasp and comprehend was this $20,000 vacation package that they were selling her was basically a vacation a year that she would, pay for on a monthly basis. So, her payment was going to be, $300 a month, and that was an affordable option for them. They were there for about 4 hours by the time they finished this presentation on their vacation. And they were super excited about it. And when she got home, she kind of crunched some numbers and she did the math. And she said, we only paid $3,000 for this vacation for 7 days. The package that we bought is going to be $300 a month for the rest of our lives. And we could have taken 10 vacations before, it actually will pay for itself. And so she kind of felt first a little suckered into it. She didn't really know what she was getting into. She was very excited because she was on vacation. They might have been drinking at some point during the day, so maybe the clarity wasn't there. But these are kind of those mistakes when you're in the moment, and it's kind of whether there's pressure being applied or just that internal, like, we can do this, like, we can finance this and it'll be fine, and this is the reason. So there's those kind of mistakes that just happen as adults. That we can also use as advice for students, right? Like, even when you're an adult, you still make some mistakes depending on, the situation. So turning those into teachable moments. So I just did, right? If you were full of students and I'm saying, listen to what happened to my friend while she was on vacation. And she was approached with this, this beautiful vacation package. They can take a vacation every year. They can choose a different spot every year. They can go to the Dominican Republic. They can go to Costa Rica. They can go to Cancun. They can go to all these different places and spend a week there. And all they had to do was pay $300 a month. And these are kind of those teachable moments for students. And maybe one day they'll be in that situation and they'll say, I'm going to decline that free spa day and not go to that timeshare presentation because I remember my teacher talking about her friend who got suckered into this. So these are kind of those teachable moments. So another one is scared of teaching the wrong information. Who here thinks that there is wrong information that you may or may not be teaching around finance? Yes, you're shaking your head, yes. Everyone has these things that they don't want to teach the wrong information, right? There's a question of liability. Teachers sometimes think that this could come back on them somehow, then they could be liable for giving out misinformation, right? So they're not confident in the strategies, whether it be like investment strategies or saving for retirement and what those strategies look like. And they also have no investing experience. So how are you expected to teach kids to save and invest for their future if you don't really know how to save and invest for your future and you don't really know how this works either? How are you expected to teach those things, right? So we're going to try and overcome some of those fears. So teachers are not regulated by the SEC, right? The Securities and Exchange Commissions. You guys do have zero liability on you if you give any student any kind of misinformation about investing or something else, right? So you don't have to worry about the liability. This could never come back on you as a teacher, right? You don't have to be an expert in investing, right? The S&P 500 is the best investment strategy for teens. And I'll repeat that. The S&P 500, which is the largest 500 companies in a conglomerate, it's tracked over the last 60 years, is the best investment for teens. Does anyone know why we say that? And why specifically teens? Perfect. I will share with you. So teenagers are usually, 15 years old. They have 45 years to invest in the S&P 500 at 15 years old. And over time, the S&P 500 has proven to give a return of at least 10 to 12% of annual returns over that long-term period of time. And so kids have what some of us don't have, and that's time on their hands. They have 45 years to invest in the S&P 500. And so that's where we tell kids to put their money. All right. Here is, over the past 30 years, the S&P 500 index and it's delivered a compound average annual return growth rate of 10.26% annually. And so this is kind of what this looks like. It's a little bit of a roller coaster, just like every stock market. But the S&P 500 has a proven track record, and this is exactly why this is the perfect investment opportunity for students, because they have 45 years to invest. Now, would I advise someone like myself, mid-40s, to invest in the S&P 500? I mean, maybe, but there's also better alternatives for me who only have about 20-something years before I need to start taking out my retirement money, right? So there's probably better investment choices for me personally, but for teens, absolutely. They have all the time in the world. So a lot of teachers think that students won't understand the material or the information, right? We feed kids a lot of stuff. And so a lot of these concepts may be kind of hard for teens to grab, right? They don't remember what they had for breakfast that morning, and they're not planning what they're doing next weekend. They're kind of in the moment. And so we really kind of just don't give them enough credit for not being able to understand the concepts. We think that students can't relate, right? A lot of our students don't even have jobs yet. So how can they relate to saving money, or let alone investing money, when they don't even have income coming in yet? Or we think they're just too young, right? Too young to start investing, too young to understand what they're doing, and so we just don't want them to do it. That's kind of the other reason why. But let me tell you that Warren Buffett made his first investment at the age of 11. So he was wasting his life up until then, or so he says, right? So Warren Buffett, I think the man is 91 years old now. So if he's been investing since he was 11 years old, that is a lot of time to be investing. And we wonder, don't ever wonder why he's a billionaire, because he's been investing since he was 11 years old. He's had all the time in the world to earn that money. So research has shown that students who take a personal finance class are more likely to demonstrate responsible financial behavior. For example, such coursework decreases the likelihood for carrying a credit card balance by 21%. So if we're actively telling our kids our own mistakes around spending and teaching them better spending and finance habits, we may be able to change this. And the likelihood of them carrying debt would hopefully go down. All right, so let's talk about a couple of the biggest investing myths. This one's one of my favorites. So, number one, investing is only for the wealthy. You have to have money to invest money, right? Investing is expensive, and only the elite have access to be able to invest. And let's just go show of hands. Number one, investing is only for the wealthy. True or false? False, absolutely. Investing is expensive. True or false? False, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And only the elite have access to investing. False. All right? So recently, and I'm talking within the last 10 years, there's been a change in the way investing works. I know I was watching a movie, and it was like an old 80s movie, and they have to call up their stockbroker, and they're making trades over the phone. And that's how it was done in the 80s, right? Wall Street in the 80s was all over the phone. You have brokers calling you, I have this investment, that investment. You're shaking your head. Yes, you have to call your stockbroker and invest. At that time, investing was kind of expensive because you needed to buy an entire share of something. And the share prices have, are up and down, but you had to buy an entire share. If you had to buy an entire share of, let's say, NVIDIA, yes. What is NVIDIA trading at today? $1,100 a share? Okay. So $1,250 a share. So you have to cough up $1,200 to buy one share of NVIDIA. So if we had to buy NVIDIA in the 80s, which I don't think they were around, but that was the money that you had to spend. It's completely different today. I can buy $5 worth of NVIDIA. Did you know that? I can buy $5 of NVIDIA today in my app because they're fractional shares. Fractional shares of stocks have changed kind of the way we invest. And so what a fractional share is, things like Stockpile, Robinhood, E-Trade. Fractional shares make investing simple, they make it easy, and they make it inexpensive. A student can have a Stockpile app on their phone, and they can buy $5 worth of any stock, Nike, Adidas, Apple, whatever they're into, whatever they support, Coca-Cola, whatever that is, they can buy fractional shares of that stock. And what does that mean? It means it's compounded in the same way that that chart that I showed you. So you're buying a small portion of it, but you could also watch that grow as you continue to invest. Number 2, the stock market is gambling. So references to Las Vegas, references to legal gambling. Do we believe that this is true or false? It is absolutely false. So the S&P 500 has a proven track record of 10% average annual returns over the last 20 years. And again, we're going back to the S&P 500 because over the past 50 years, the index has delivered a compound average annual rate growth of almost 11%, 10.53%. And so that's not gambling. That's not gambling if you have proven track record results of at least 10% a year. So here's another myth. Investments have to be monitored constantly. So there's a really cute quote that says, if investing is exciting and it's something that you have to monitor and you're looking at constantly, you're not doing it right. Investing is boring. Investing is putting your money in something and waiting years before it actually gets anywhere. Investing is boring. It shouldn't be exciting. If it's exciting, you're day trading, and that's not something that we advise for students, and it's not something we advise for adults either. All right, so it's false. Long-term investments don't have to be monitored constantly. If investing is entertaining, and if you're having fun, you're probably not making any money. Good investing is boring, right? All right, here's another scary statistic. 22% of Americans have no emergency savings. And emergency savings is usually about $1,000 is what we're talking about. So 22% of Americans cannot cover an emergency that's $1,000 or more. Is anyone blown away by this statistic? Like, this is alarming. This is someone living paycheck to paycheck, and that's 22% of Americans. And these are the students that we are teaching. Their parents cannot cover an emergency. That could be new tires if you have, a blowout and they make you replace all of your tires. This could be any kind of emergency. It could be a trip to the ER. It could be anything. And these 22% of Americans can't cover it. All right, here are a few of our resources that I wanted to talk to you about. We have a personal finance basics, which is a money skills boot camp that we target to our middle schoolers as well as our high schoolers, because a lot of our high schoolers are new to personal finance. The money skills boot camp is a 10-hour course in personal finance. Again, it's not us talking to you. It's activities for students. It's quizzes. It's all of these things that kind of give them a foundation in personal finance, and it's 10 hours, and it's available to you for free. And I will link it at the end as well when you get all of your conference materials. So you will have that resource for you. We also have Investing Basics, which covers the 7 golden rules of investing. And then we have a plethora of YouTube videos that if you have 5, 7, 14 minutes to kill during a class, you can play one of the videos. All right, I'm going to just go over a little bit of Young Investor Society, who we are, what we do. We are a personal finance curriculum organization. We provide financial literacy and investment curriculum for students and teachers. We target high school students, but we do middle school students as well. We have a couple of different ways that students and teachers come into the platform. So one of them is you guys. One of them is teachers who borrow and teach our financial literacy curriculum to students. So all of you have curriculum already. This just kind of supplements what you're doing. If you have, if you want to put investing into your curriculum that you don't already have, we have the resources for you to do so. You don't even have to do anything. We have YouTube videos that teach the concepts for you. If you are that uncomfortable, if you don't want to actually teach the investing portion, play the video. Our founder, James Fletcher, teaches these students everything that they need to know. And so our mission is basically to provide quality financial literacy education and programs to students and teachers. A lot of our students come from all different backgrounds and socioeconomic levels. And we're really trying to teach students skills that will last a lifetime and empower students to take control of their financial future. I have a little bit of an overview video that I want to share. Oh, but my audio is low.
I'm definitely enjoying the whole experience.
Maybe I can turn it up.
Well, I really like that they're giving high school students a platform to learn and also to showcase their finance skills. I'm definitely enjoying the whole experience.
High schoolers don't normally get the opportunity to delve deep into the financial services industry. YS really makes their mark. They have the stock pitch competition and they have all these other initiatives to help high schoolers learn more about investing and just give them an opportunity to succeed and carry on those skills.
Hi, I'm James Fletcher. I founded Young Investors Society in 2014 because personal finance and investing was not taught to high school students, and it's such a critical lesson that all of us need to learn throughout our lives. This year we have hundreds of kids flying in from all over the world. I am just so inspired by this next generation of investors and what they will do for our industry and what they will do for our world.
There's so many opportunities here.
So many events to choose from.
Financial evaluations from industry experts.
Build relationships, connections.
I learned a lot more about ESG, various mechanisms of valuation. Understand the why I'm doing something.
I would say definitely go for it.
Definitely do it. There's no harm. I tell them just do it. I mean, don't be nervous. It's worth your time.
You need to just dive right in to showcase your skills, get feedback, get a lot of experience.
All right, so that just kind of gives you a little bit of an overview of who we are as an organization and what we do. I did tell you a little bit about how teachers come into the organization, but I didn't tell you how students come into the organization. We have a club model similar to an FBLA or DECA, where students get together once a week, usually after school, usually in a classroom that the teacher allows them to be in, either at lunch or at after school, but they work on our courses and lessons during that time. And so our courses and lessons are all web-based. It's a web-based platform where there's an activity for them to do, there's a lesson for them to learn from, there's a video, and they also take a quiz at the end. And so this kind of, don't know what happened there. This kind of platform is what we're really kind of known for, and we're currently in 46 states and 80 countries. And so with that being said, there's a ton of information that I want to give you, but somehow my tech has gone out. But no worries, I'll give you the website. It's yis.org, super simple. yis.org. If you register as a teacher, you have access to over 40 different courses and lessons to be able to pick and choose from for your students. You can integrate it into your classroom. You can also choose to do our after-school club model if you choose to. What that means, it's once a week after school. It's all student-led, or we try to make it as student-led as possible. The teacher is usually just kind of a warm body in the room. The students have a president, a vice president, a treasurer, a secretary, and we really give them just kind of the resources that they need to be able to run this club. We give them kind of a schedule of what to do every week. So they're really the ones kind of bringing in their friends, bringing in other students to be able to run the club. Along the way, we have fun things for kids to do regarding finance. So we have a $1 a day challenge program, which basically challenges students to save $1 a day in a personal account. Could be any account, savings account, checking account, investment account. A lot of our kids have custodial accounts, which means their parent has opened up a brokerage account for them. If they're able to save $30 in 1 month, we'll match that for them. We basically Zelle them or PayPal them $30. All they have to do is take a personal finance quiz, which is about 30 questions on just basic personal finance. Get a 70 or better on that quiz and be able to apply for the $1 a day challenge. And now I just realized my mic wasn't on the entire time. No worries. So that's just kind of a little bit of, oh, I thought you were going to get this back up. Nope. That's okay. YIS.org is our website if you register as a teacher. You can enter in other as your school and then type in the name of your school at the end. Thank you for getting that back up. All right. I did have, let's see, I'm probably at time, but this is kind of our platform and what this looks like. So this is our Money Skills Boot Camp. It's the 5 steps to financial freedom. The whole course is 10 hours. It's about an hour per lesson. The first lesson is earning money. So what does it mean to have financial freedom? What would you spend your time on if you never had to worry about money? It goes into the lesson. It also has a Prezi presentation along with a YouTube video, and then the kids get to take a quiz at the end. If you wanted to see a little bit about what that looks like, I do have a sample.
Choose a bank. So there's various options of banks. There's our local credit union, there's national banks, and there's international banks. And we walk into a bank, and we're greeted by a receptionist, a clerk, and there's a couple of different accounts that we can open. First, we can open a savings account, and second, we can open a checking account. What is the difference between a savings account and a checking account? A checking account is for the day-to-day purchases, money coming in on a regular basis, money coming out, and this is the account where you will do most of your transactions from. Second, we create a savings account. The savings account is automatically, or we make the choice to put money in a savings account that will have a interest rate or a CD in that savings account, and that will give us interest into that account.
So that's just a little bit of a sample of what kind of our lessons look like and what the student can expect when they go through the courses and lessons. Here's our website. If you would like to register as a teacher, it's completely free. We never ask you to pay for a subscription or a membership fee or anything like that. We're fully funded. This year we have Bloomberg, BlackRock, JP Morgan, Fidelity. I'm missing some. We have some major sponsors they're able to fully fund us for this year. So we don't have any fees ever for students or teachers. All right, now here's a little bit of Q&A. I basically just have one question for you. And if anyone can answer this, I have a Dutch Brothers gift card for you. So, what percent of teens don't know the difference between a credit card and a debit card? First hand went up right here, blue, 32. I believe you are correct. All right, good job, good listening skills. I think I really kind of hammered in that 32%.